I think a lot of people are wasting money on smartphones. Not because expensive phones are bad, they are incredible, but because cheaper phones got good enough. And that's changed everything. Because for a long time, buying a budget phone felt like expecting a bad experience. Bad camera, bad screen, slow performance, cheap design. But now, that's not true in the same way anymore. And I think a lot of people are buying phones based on an old version of market that doesn't exist anymore. So in this video, I want to answer one simple question. What do you actually get when you spend flagship money on a phone? And does the average person really feel the difference every day? Because when you look at it honestly, the budget phones has quietly become the smart choice for a lot more people than they realize. The budget phones is now good enough. The first thing that we need to admit is that the whole idea of a budget phone is outdated. Budget phone used to be genuinely rough. They were slow, they aged badly, they had awful cameras, the screens looked cheap, and after a few months, they felt even worse. So people learn a very simple lesson. Cheap phone equal bad phone. And honestly, that used to be fair. But today, even relatively affordable phones usually give you a surprisingly decent camera, solid battery life, smooth enough performance for daily apps, usable camera and good lighting, and a design that doesn't feel embarrassing anymore. And they are not amazing on everything, but they no longer fail at the basics. And that matters because most people don't need their phone to be amazing at everything. They need it to be good at the things that they do every single day. And that's a very different standard. And that's where this whole conversation gets interesting. Because the real question is not, is the flagship better? The real question is, it is better for what? Think about how most people use their phones. Messaging, social media, YouTube, maps, calling, banking, maybe a little gaming. That's it. And for that kind of daily use, a lot of budget and mid-range phones already feel completely fine. Not exciting, not luxury, but completely fine. Apps open fast enough, scrolling is smooth enough, the battery gets through the day, the camera is decent enough to post online, the screen is good enough to enjoy the content. And the word enough is the whole point of the video. Because when the phone becomes good enough for your real life, spending double or triple the amount of money becomes much harder to justify. Not impossible, but harder. And I think that's where a lot of people get trapped. They shop for a phone based on a spec sheet, not based on their actual life. They buy performance that they will never fully use, cameras they will barely understand, features they forget about after the first week, not because they are stupid, but because premium tech is marketed to be necessary. And usually, it isn't. Now, to be fair, flagships are better. This is not one of those videos pretending $300 phone is the same as a top-end flagship. It is not. If you spend more, you will usually get better cameras, especially in low light, better video recording, a brighter and nicer display, a faster processor, a better build quality, better vibration motor, maybe wireless charging, maybe better long-term software support, and all those small premium details that make the expensive feel polished. That stuff is real. The difference is real. But here is the part that matters. A phone can be clearly better without being clearly worth it for you. That's the distinction people miss. Yes, the flagship camera is good, but are you someone who actually cares deeply about photography? Yes, the processor is faster, but are you pushing your phone harder to notice it? Yes, the display is brighter and more premium, but does that change your day in a meaningful way? Sometimes the answer is yes, but for the most people, the answer is honestly not really. And once you admit that, the budget phone will start to look less like a compromise and more like a smart decision. Because best phone is not the most expensive one. It is the one that fits the way you actually live. Now I do think cheap phones still fail in some important areas. Low light photography is usually worse, videos is often noticeably worse, zoom cameras are weaker or missing, performance over time can be less reliable, storage speed can be slower, and software support can be shorter depending on the brand, and you usually miss out on a premium extras. So yes, cheaper phones still come with compromises, but here is what changed. These compromises used to ruin the experiences. Now they usually just define the limits of the experience. That's a huge difference. A budget phone today often does not feel bad, it just feels less premium. And for a lot of buyers, those are not the same thing. So who should still buy a flagship? I think a flagship still make a lot of sense for people who really care about camera, especially video recording, people who game heavily on their phone, people who keep phones for many years, and people who want the absolute best screen, build, speakers, and overall experience. And honestly, it is for people who simply enjoy premium tech and they can easily afford it. That's valid. But for students, casual users, and people upgrading from much older phones, or anyone just wants something solid without spending a fortune, the budget phone or mid-range phone is often the better buy, not because it wins in every category, but because it wins the category that matters the most, value. And value is underrated in tech because tech culture loves the best, the fastest, the sharpest, the newest, and the most premium. But most people don't need the best. They need something that works well, feel modern, lasts long enough, and doesn't destroy their wallet. And right now, the budget phones are better at that than ever. So now, the budget phone is not equal to flagship. That's not the point. The point is that no longer has to be. Because if the cheaper phone already covers almost everything you do, then the expensive phone stops being the obvious choice. And I think that's the real shift. Budget phone used to be about surface first, saving second. Now for a lot of people, they are smart purchase first and compromises second. And that's why I think the budget phone is now good enough. If you enjoy this, subscribe, because next I want to do the other side of the conversation. Who should still buy a flagship in 2026 and why it might be still worth it for the right person. And that one is going to be interesting. See you in the next one.